Welcome back, coaches. This is the Football Coaching Podcast. I'm Daniel Chamberlain, co-host, here with Joe Daniel, as always.
What's up, Coach?
It's football season. It's chilly outside. What's up is it's like game on, man. Right?
Yep.
This is real football weather.
Finally got
that
here.
We now play half of our games in like 100 degrees, which is absurd. But
Yep.
It's football weather time.
Finally got here. We finally cooled off. Got to. I think we have our second fire in the wood stove of the year tonight. Very small one because it's not that cold, but I just like it.
Yeah.
But finally wore a hoodie to practice today. We finally got here.
Yeah, I love it. This is my favorite time of year. It's like I need a jacket to go out in the morning, and that's when it's the right time of the year, especially if it stays below. Like it's been 70 or something here. I know we haven't talked about the weather in a long time, but it's just been terrible. So it's good weather to talk about.
We went through we did not get hit as bad. We got a lot of rain, but the hurricanes hit. We didn't get hit like North Carolina, but we took a lot of rain for a while. But yeah, we've had pretty good weather, and it's cooling off now, so feels like fall.
Yeah,
finally.
We are game planning. Of course, I don't right now to go to practice every day, so I'm just helping with the game planning in the background. But our biggest game of the season, not the most unbeatable opponent. That was week 3 for us, and that was probably the state champions of the class above us. And they kicked our teeth in, as they should have. But in our district, this is the game. Should be the district championship game, as long as we don't do stupid stuff, regardless of how the outcome comes here. You know what I mean?
Sure.
As long as we don't screw around and get our heads down if we get beat or think we're too good if we go win this game, we should be able to handle the rest of the schedule. But this is the one, man. We kind of had it circled all year. We're excited about it. This is the one that you're stealing film for. Like, I've got to have every game. We're breaking down way too much film because I need to know what this guy does on 3rd and long. And you can't get that out of 2 games. It's just not feasible. So it's one, and it's finally here. And we play on a Thursday, which is wild. So we're only 2 days away from that. It's our fall break. Do y'all do that up there on your fall break weeks? Do you play the day early?
No, so we don't have a fall break, but also we play Thursday games. We haven't played as many this year. We've only played one this year. Last year we played once a month. We played on a Thursday because of the official shortage.
Right.
That's a new thing for us. And then we haven't had we did have one Saturday game, but it was a rain out. So that was the hurricane. We played one Thursday game because of official shortage, but we don't have a fall break deal.
Did they rain y'all out because of lightning, or was it literally just so much water they didn't want to play the game?
Couldn't use the field was unusable.
Because injuries?
Huh? Yeah, because it's threat of
fear of injuries. Okay.
Yeah, fear of injuries, yeah. And when you I can tell you this from experience, when we did this 2018 at Amelia, and it was a 2A field, which is the outfield of a baseball field.
Yes.
With no track around it. We played the first round playoff game on a very wet field, and then had more rain, and our field was unplayable, period, from that point on. We ended up playing a field turf field in Charlottesville, 2 hours from the school, for our second round playoff game. So we waited until Saturday morning to play that one, and their field this was their field. Their field had dried out enough that it was, mostly. I mean, it wasn't bad. The footing certainly wasn't the problem.
I was wondering, with baseball nowadays, it's like the slightest dusting of rain, and they're like, roll the tarp out and cancel the game. And sometimes I feel like it really just kills some games are supposed to be played when it's terrible weather. You know what I mean? I know they're slinging a baseball at 100 miles an hour at someone's head, and that's probably not super.
Can't control the ball. Yeah.
Right. It's pretty dangerous. But stand in front of a Mack truck,
I'm sure back in the day they would have played it, but it will absolutely ruin the field. Yeah. And we're playing a faster game now. We need secure footing to play. And I know the old school mentality of, we're just going to line up, and it's, look, the game has gone not entirely, and there certainly are teams that probably would have played it anyway because the footing would be to their advantage for sure. If
Right.
you are that double wing, that wing T, that power running game, and you're playing a spread team, then you're going to go ahead and play it because you don't really care. You're the long grass team, right? You don't really care about the field being, muddy because you don't cut on routes. You just go forward, and it would be to your advantage. But for sure, for the team that we were playing, they want a good, solid field to use, and now they could line up and run you over too, but they play a spread style, and you wouldn't want to trash your field and not be able to cut for the rest of the year because it's going to rain again. You're going to play on soggy fields.
Yeah.
And then it was so bad the following week that we couldn't even practice outside. We actually had to use another team that has field turf. We had to go to their school. They very graciously let us use their field for a Thursday practice. That was the only day we got out the week before. So back to normal now, though.
Good. Well, wonderful. Well, let's pay some bills. Let's talk about some football, man.
Yeah. You can go to joedanielfootball.com and you can check out a new guide that we have that is the basically how to build your defensive system. And so if you want to check that out, you can go to joedanielfootball.com and download it. All new guide that is there about putting together, the things that are important for you to put together that defensive system. So if you don't have it, you probably don't, unless you've been to the website in the last couple days or week. Then go get that for free download, enter your email address, and it'll be sent straight to your email inbox at joedanielfootball.com.
Perfect. For me, it's just do patreon.com/Chamberlain Football Consulting. There's some tiers there of what I can services I offer for you as a coach, whether it's breaking down an opponent, self-scouting. It's kind of that game planning thing, and then doing some little fireside chats and how-to videos and stuff that you can buy into. So if that's what you're looking for, there's probably a tier over there for you. I can be an assistant coach on your team for the rest of the year. Just find the tier that's right. If it's not one on there, email me. Let's jump into it here. So a couple of weeks ago, I stumbled upon Nick Saban's freshman install stuff. And reading through and like, man, you ever tried to like crack the mind of a genius? Now, there's some crap in there that's so complex. Talking about open side and closed sides of formations. You ever looked at that? Like, it doesn't make sense to me. I mean, but he breaks down every formation in like 3 or 4 different ways, and then he calls 3 defenses at the same time, right? There's 3 different split. If it's regular, this. If it's a trips or an over,
Sure.
what he calls 3 different pass or defensive calls at a time. Just a lot of stuff going on in that Nick Saban defense, and so after I had my mind blown for an hour reading through there and just trying to, it's not comprehensible to me. I don't know how a freshman in college goes in. I guess if you're indoctrinated in it for a year, you'll figure it out.
Yeah.
But I stumbled on one slide that said the ball, the ball, the ball, and how defense is all about turnovers. There's great. You can be a bend, don't break. You can stop the run. You can stop the pass. None of that matters. He just wants the football back. And I just thought that was really a wild idea, a wild way to look at ball and defense. And I guess it's, Joe, you talk about your 2-point conversion every time mentality, your onside kick every time mentality, because it makes sense, right?
Mm-hmm.
You can go back and justify those actions. Look, if I miss a single field goal and I'm 51% on 2 points, well, even if 51% on 2 points, you're still better off.
You're still ahead, yeah.
Right. Onside, like, doesn't mean you got to kick it exactly 10 yards to go onside every time. You can boot it behind a fat kid, or you can put it in a zone where there's no player, right? You can go chase down an onside kickball, just tactically placing it. But even if they get on
really
it,
fun onside kicks this week. I saw I was sitting with my father-in-law, and there was somebody booted an onside where they kicked The announcers were discussing whether or not it was intentional, and I was like, it's intentional. We work on that all the time. He drilled when we're an onside every time team. We're not currently an onside every time team, but when we were, we worked on these things all the time. He drilled the ball a million miles an hour at a guy on the front line, and it bounced off of him, and they recovered it. And then there was, of course, the South Carolina drop helicopter kick, which is a good one. I love the drop kick. I love the helicopter. So both of those are always cool. The helicopter is really cool. You got to have a strong leg to make that one work. The drop kick probably makes it a little bit easier because you can probably get a little more height before it starts spinning out. But it's harder to do the drop because you don't have to kick it as hard. But that's just some really cool onsides. They were all, necessary. I think for the most part, necessary onside kicks, right? Or at least made sense. It wasn't like onside every time. These are college teams. They're not going to onside every time because the fans would not understand it and would riot. You can get away with it in high school, but you better win. And there were some really cool ones though. That's another, analytics thing that but you have the biggest problem with analytics, and this goes back to turnovers. Turnovers is an easy analytics sell, right? Team that gets the most turnovers wins. But like at some, 80%, whatever. These numbers usually come out around 80% to 90%. Usually 75 to 85% is where these numbers all come out. Team with the most explosive plays, 75 to 85% win percentage. Team with the most turnovers, 75 to 85% win percentage. Team with the most possessions, the team that gets an extra possession, 75, 85%, right? Team that gets an onside kick, steals a possession, basically.
Right.
So, those are all, they're all good ideas, and they're good ideas, but they're backed by the reality, which is those teams win more. Now, turnovers is like, yeah, the other team sucks at holding onto the football. We win more. It's like, yeah, well, they probably suck at a lot of stuff, right? So there's all those kind of things you have to question. I think the onside kick one is very much I think that's a very real one, getting more possessions, because teams that onside every time, a lot of teams that onside every time aren't that good, right? If I had a kid who could boot it in the end zone, I probably wouldn't onside every time.
That's way better starting position, way back there.
Right. Yeah, and I had a great defense and all that sort of stuff. It's like, yeah, if I had a great defense and I knew I could get you to punt the ball and I'm going to get it at the 40 anyway, then no. But like, if my defense is going to give up a touchdown anyway, or my kickoff coverage is so bad that I'm risking giving up and by the way, I don't like to kick the ball. I don't want any returns at all. I don't care how good my coverage team is, because it's the ultimate. Those plays, punt and kickoff, are the ultimate spread offense play. They are the ultimate spread offense play. Get a guy in space. Get your best athlete in space. Who's your best athlete? The guy standing on the goal line, right? Or the guy standing back there waiting to catch the punt. And I'm going to kick it to him when my guys are 40, 50, 60 yards away.
Right.
I'm going to kick it to him. No.
I tell you,
I'm kicking at the fat kid in the front line.
Right? We have a really, really good kicker at Bristow this year, and it's been fun watching him. He's hit some in-game field goals that are, I think he hit 49 or something the other day, and it's just like it's awesome to see. But most of his field goals hit like the 1 yard line to 1 yard deep, and it's like, if you can just consistently get it over the line. Of course, in high school, the rule is if it touches the end zone or the foot of the returner's in the end zone, it's touchback. So he's probably like, if he could put it there every time, I don't care if it is the fastest kid in the state. He's
right. You don't care. He's not going anywhere.
It's most of the time going to be a touchback, but a little bit of wind, right? We have to think situationally about that in practice all week, and then getting into the game, because if he gets a little headwind, the 1 yard line is no longer almost a touchback. Right now, it's at the 9 or the 10 or whatever. So it's situational football, man. It changes on a dime like that. Yeah, so we just wanted to have a little an episode here to talk about having that turnover mentality, coaching it every single day, right? We all do our everyday drills for whatever your position groups are, and so I just kind of wanted to hear your thoughts. It may even get out of format from our usual episodes, just because this is Well, it's one slide in Nick Saban's defense that says the ball, the ball, the ball, and we're going to try to turn it into a podcast episode. So
It's interesting how many things you can do that on, and I do that all the time. And you can, I've been listening to 25 hours of Steve Jobs biography. I think I've got about 4. He's dying right now. So actually, he just got a new liver. So in the book, he's dead now.
right, he's dead.
Yeah, he's been dead, but in the book, he's just gotten a liver transplant. But he like I've listened to this 25 hours, and I had already gotten this quote that 2 quotes from it out of 25 hours are like what I'm taking away from it. Like, it's a good story.
Yeah.
You know, it's a amazing story. But one is that creativity is just connecting things. Like, I got that from one of my strategic coach meetings. But like the way that, of course, the ultimate example is the iPhone, where it's, putting an MP3 player, a digital camera, and a phone in one place is how the iPhone was born. Essentially, it was just connecting things. And this is brilliant invention that really didn't invent anything. It just put, I had a digital camera, I had a phone, I had a cell phone, I had a digital camera, and I had a
calculator.
What you call it? iPod.
Oh yeah.
So I had all these things I'm carrying with me, and it's like, we'll just stick them all together. And then how they did it. But then the other one is Steve Jobs. One of the things that Steve Jobs said, and it's actually on my whiteboard, so I'm looking up there, is reframe the problem. So whenever the problem came up, he would just, and you see these things over and over and over throughout the book. But like, you could go for hours talking about those 2 lines, like just ways to apply those in football, ways to apply those in business, ways to apply those in life. And so taking one slide from Nick Saban, who is as far as football goes, a genius like a Steve Jobs or like an Elon Musk or like these guys who have changed the landscape of things. I mean, you look at a guy like Bill Walsh. Bill Walsh changed the landscape of football, not just because he was a really good coach, but you look at where it went from there and all of the people on the Bill Walsh coaching tree and how it changed the way that football was played. And you look at the Nick Saban coaching tree and you look at Nick Saban, is out of football, and Nick Saban guys are still at the top or near the top or, competing for the top. A number of those guys are Nick Saban guys. I mean, even you look at like the thing, Shane Beamer had a year there. He's at South Carolina, almost knocked off Alabama. But like, I don't know what Shane Beamer's got in store for him. South Carolina's a tough place to win a championship, but Shane was a really good football coach. We obviously grew up with a really good football coach in his house, Frank Beamer. But Shane's got some of that too. These guys have, Sarkisian, and these guys have all been touched by him. So, like, these guys have somebody who has literally had a massive impact and was not. You look at like McVay, who rocketed to the top, right?
Yeah.
It was like, he's a genius. Well, you look at guys like Saban and Belichick. Everybody knew they were good football coaches. Pete Carroll's another one. Everybody knew they were good football coaches. But it was years before they were Nick Saban or Bill Belichick. They had, Saban failed at Miami, really. I mean, failed. I think he was 8-8 or something like that. But as far as Nick Saban is concerned,
he wasn't going to win a championship there.
Right. It wasn't good. It wasn't what everybody thought, right? He had his years at Michigan State when he was kind of developing. He was good. That got him the LSU job, but he wasn't Nick Saban yet. Everybody knows Belichick's deal, going through the Browns and stuff. And
weren't they there at the same time?
Yeah.
Wasn't it Saban, Belichick? Man, I saw a video or something the other day with like all the coaches that were in that era at the Browns, and I'm gonna Google it while you're talking. Sorry.
Yeah. And then, I mean, Pete Carroll failed multiple times and, had multiple failures. Everybody knew he was a good football coach. But they changed the landscape, but they also had to change the way that they did things. They didn't just come out. Not that McVay was just like lucky or stumbled into it or something like that, but like these guys obviously had things that worked and they had things that didn't work, and they had to figure it out somewhat. And that involves like reframing the problem and stuff. So I think it's really and that whole just there's so many things about these guys that are it's really interesting to read about people who are changed the world in different ways. And then you look at football as kind of a much smaller universe, but the guys who changed the world. The other thing is the guys who changed the world in football are all weird too, just like the guys who changed the world. Like, these guys like Jobs and Musk that changed the world are weirdos. Everybody knows Belichick's a weirdo. Everybody knows Saban's a weirdo, right? They have these weird personalities. Seeing Saban on Saturday mornings next to Pat McAfee is like
It's my favorite thing in football.
like this isn't a guy. This is a guy that yes, you would love to have a beer with him, right? But it ain't like having a beer with Pat McAfee kind of thing.
Right.
Like you would sit there and
You're not allegedly going to jump into a swimmer.
You half expect him to start breaking down the bubbles and stuff, and like just going on some weird tangent. I don't even know. It's just they're different. They're weird. Like, I mean, Walsh said like he just couldn't imagine. And these guys are all workaholics. Walsh was, I remember Walsh went to Stanford and was like, if I could have just taken 2 weeks off with the 49ers, I would have never left. But he couldn't do that. And you look at a guy like Spurrier, obviously it can be done. Right? Spurrier didn't have great success in the NFL, but he's able to play golf. It could be done. I think Joe Gibbs was the one who said like he knew he could take a day off. He knew but he couldn't do it.
Right.
Like he knew that he fully recognized that his way might not be the best way, but it was the way he had to do it. He had to work 20 hours a day. He had to have his assistants in there for 18 hours on a Sunday or Monday, or well, obviously on a Sunday, but on a Monday or whatever, in the off season, they had to put this time in. He knew working for him was miserable. He knew it sucked to work for him, but that was the way it had to be done, and it worked. Luckily, because if it doesn't work, you don't get to do it for very long.
No,
because you don't get to make guys work 20-hour days going 7 and 9, right, or 7 and 10 now. So anyway, back to turnovers.
Yeah, well, we knew. I'm telling you guys, if you continue listening to
this is not a structured.
It is not structured. We're going to go through because now I want to talk about Kalen DeBoer at Alabama. And I saw a thing in social media the other day, Twitter, I'm sure, of Saban in the national championship game, up 27, 28 points, throwing a fit because someone missed a run fit. And we look at Kalen DeBoer, who lost a game to Vandy, of all people, and then barely squeaks out against South Carolina by like a point or two or whatever. There's a point, right? Because they missed a 2-point missed a 2-point to win the game. They could have kicked a field goal and went to overtime.
Right.
Which you're not going to overtime with Bama if you can not have to, right?
No, they didn't. No, they had the ball. They were driving. They threw an interception at the end. I think they actually lost by 5.
Oh, okay.
Or something like that. I think
I was in the Cotton Bowl.
No. I forget what the score was, but yeah, they threw an interception. They got the onside kick, threw an interception at the end.
There we go. I was in the Cotton Bowl watching my Sooners get destroyed by Steve Sarkisian's Longhorns.
Yep.
Which is so hard.
Was that 30-3?
It was bad. I don't remember. I think they put some more on at the end. 33-3 or 35-3 or something.
37-3, something like that. Yeah.
Stupid. Anyway, but now we got Kalen DeBoer who's smiling, happy, excited, loves it that his team barely squeaked out a win and then just took an L. And Saban is in the national championship game, losing his mind, which just goes back to that mentality. Like
it's a different mentality.
It is a different mentality. So tying that back into turnovers, I do want to talk about this.
And I think just one more thing about that. Again, I mean, you can look at it right now and go, look, see, he lost to Vandy. It's like he just got there. This isn't his program right now. But the knee-jerk reaction is, look, see, you've got to be absolutely maniacally insane or it doesn't work. It's like that dude just took Washington, like
that's a really good point. Is like we do now He's been compared to Saban 1,000 times already,
He's
right?
going to be. He knew
That's
that.
why you don't follow a legend.
Well,
Like,
he knew. He's smart enough to know he could have sat at Washington and been fine, or he could have gotten another job. There are plenty of jobs where he could have gotten athletes that were
and not followed Nick Saban.
and not followed Nick Saban. He
But
wanted that.
we
It's
know the cupboard is not bare at Alabama.
100%.
You
I
want
mean,
to talk
it's
about
not like
taking a dream school? Like, Nick Saban recruited for me for 17 years or whatever.
Exactly. I mean, it's easier to do what Kirby did and take over a school that is pretty loaded that you went to.
Right.
But Rick's time had run out when Kirby came. Same deal. Saban took the same job, right? Alabama wasn't Alabama anymore, but they were still Alabama.
Yeah.
He didn't follow Bear. He let a couple other people. Well, he wasn't quite ready when Bear died in 1983, but he didn't follow Bear, right? He followed. I don't even remember who he followed. Francione or whatever. It was, but Alabama was not Alabama anymore. And when he came in, but it was still Alabama. It still had all those Bear titles. It still had the 6 national titles from Bear and all that sort of stuff. And so, like, those are the way to do it. Georgia was still Georgia, it's still where it is. Like, jobs that are a good job right now is like Florida State, Florida. Those places are still loaded with talent, but you don't have to follow the legend right now. You don't have to follow Bowden. You don't have to follow Spurrier. You even got to follow Muschamp.
I mean, I will never really speak poorly upon a college coach because someday I hope to be in that seat.
Oh, I said nothing about the guys that are there right now.
No, I agree, but I think we all see the writing on the wall at Florida State. That might be
Florida State's a rough one. That's
very
a hard,
doable.
And it's so, like, last year where they were at and the collapse after that quarterback gets hurt, just like
people wanted them in the playoffs.
Hope he's got a good buyout, because I think the ultimate dream is to get that contract and then get bought out.
That's Twitter. That's after
that's what you want. You want that $80 million buyout.
You ain't kidding, man. The dude's gonna make $20,000 a day for the next 5 years or something. The Jets head coach, right? And it's like,
solid. Yeah.
What? To do nothing? But I mean, that's what it takes, right? And we're in that now, that big contract era where look, I'm a Dallas Cowboys fan who's walking away, but Dak Prescott's contract, right? Like, the name of the game right now is top the last guy who got a contract, and then
we used to joke about it with the backup quarterbacks, right? What you want to do is you want to do just well enough to keep your backup quarterback job, because if you do good enough as the backup quarterback to get the starter contract, you only get one, because then everybody finds out, he really was a backup.
Right.
Like Matt Castle, right? You had that one great year, and then it was like, got paid, good for him, and then it was like,
now he's done.
Yeah. So, but those you want to be like, I always Chase Daniels is my favorite one, right? Chase Daniels he's been in the league for just wore that ball cap for like a decade and was good at it. Could he play? Kind of looked like Drew Brees.
It was all right at Missouri. I mean, he led the number 1 team in the nation until my Sooners went to town, right?
Sure,
and beat them, but
they all were good in college. But now it's the head coach, right? That head coach buyout contract, and it's like that's the like. But we joke about it. These guys are not happy. They're not going to go sit at home with their buyout. They don't want to be. They don't want to be an announcer. They don't want to be like they all get pulled out of the announcer's booth, like some of them to their detriment, like Gruden. If he had just stayed an announcer, maybe he'd still be making money, but he came out and then he's not very good with email, among other things.
He's back now, by the way.
Oh, is he?
He's doing Gruden's, what's it called? He has a show. It's like a podcast type.
Good for him. But like the buyout thing is a joke, really, because, and I think people who don't do this for a living or don't really understand it would think that these guys really want that buyout. Like, get your money while you can get it.
Right.
But they would much rather fill out that contract and a fistful of rings.
And be
right?
successful. Right. Yeah.
Everybody there. We're not in this to be rich. It's nice, but I guarantee you these guys went through a lot of years not being rich. They did not get into this to get rich.
Right.
It's a nice like bonus. And you love to be able to set your family up and have that like generational wealth. But like I can promise you that Saban's miserable. His wife's miserable right now. Now he's old enough that maybe he can accept that this is the deal. He retired on his own. But I can promise you every day he's thinking about it.
He's still going to the games. You know what I mean? Like,
Right. And I mean, I remember when Bill Curry, who was also a Alabama head coach, Bill Curry took over at Georgia State. They did an interview when Georgia State started their program. They did an interview. Bill Curry was hired as the head football coach after he'd been retired from Alabama, and then Georgia. Well, he was at Alabama. Then he ended up retiring from Georgia Tech, and so he was still living in Atlanta. And they asked him to be the first head coach of Georgia State, kind of established. And he knew his role. His role was to establish a program and probably lose a lot of games, right? And he went to ask his wife, like nervously, like, "Baby, we don't have to move." So that was the selling point. Was we don't have to move because Georgia Tech and Georgia State are in the same place, basically. They're both in Atlanta, and he in downtown. And he was like, "We don't have to move." But they asked me if I would maybe be the head coach, and she's like, "Oh my God, please get out of the house because you're driving me insane, right? Because that's not where he's supposed to be. Like that's not how he functions,
right.
and like that's what these guys are like. Like the guy was the head coach at Alabama. Do you think he's thinking like Georgia State's going to be the thing that makes me? No, like no." He's made. He's
He
done.
just wanted to get back in it, right?
He just wants to get. His wife wants him to get out of the house, and he needs to get out of the house. That's the way that these guys are. So anyway, turnovers.
I'm gonna start a counter on the screen for how many times we had to say that. But so it does come back to, we talked about how these guys are geniuses, right? And they're almost, I think savant is probably the word, because it's that like inability to even function outside of it. Like they're so caught up in their trade, they don't even care about the other things. You know what I mean? In life, like family, obviously, because they work their asses off 20 hours a day.
Right.
Got to do the job. So we talk about having this defensive mentality that it's just turnovers. And so my real question is, why can't we do that at the high school level? I know there's teams out there that are good at getting turnovers, but
Sure.
is it something that you have to spend so much time in to draw up and practice? And some of us are just trying to get kids to put their cleats on the right feet and put the helmet on the right way. And like, what is it that would allow someone to go in and change a culture, a mentality on a defensive side of the ball? Or is it just simply you get pulled up to head coach so quick, probably because you want to, because the guy above you isn't thinking like you? I mean, you got to get to the top so you can enforce this rule. Like, so what is it that just prevents, I guess, these savants from surviving at high school levels?
What prevents the savants from surviving, or what? Or are we talking turnovers right now?
Let's talk turnovers, then we'll get to the other piece.
Okay. I honestly believe this, and it's been my experience, and it's not 100%, but you get what you ask for. You get what you emphasize. So if you spent all week working on tackling, you did it first thing in practice, and you did multiple different tackling drills, and you just put all of the emphasis on tackling. And I don't care if you want to do hawk tackling, or you want to bite the ball, or do some other rugby style tackling, or you want to go, put your nose in the V of his neck, or split his numbers, or however you want to do it. And you want to run drills that are profile tackle drills, and you want to run shimmy tackles or breakdown tackles, or you want to run, roll tackles and gator rolls, or what doesn't matter to me what you want to do. You want to do open field tackling drills. You want to do things that you can do without pads on so that it's safe. Doesn't matter to me what you do. And I'd go again, it's probably some sort of 80-20 type of deal. that maybe 80% of the time you're going to get, this is actually the reverse of the 80-20 rule, but you're going to get better tackling, noticeably better tackling, if you did that for a week. Now, why don't we all do that? Because we have other stuff.
We got not enough
So
time.
I want takeaways. So if I opened every practice with not being able to find my mouth with the coffee cup, coffee cup.
Many a slip twixt a cup and a lip, said Billy the Kid, and I just got me. It's bourbon.
Takeaways is the same thing, and I've done it. I've done it where we opened every practice with a 15 or 20 minute takeaway circuit, and we worked on stripping the ball, punching the ball out, ripping the ball out. We worked on fumble recovery, scooping scores. We worked interception drills. We worked, all high point. We worked sack fumbles. And, quite honestly, like some of the times we got a bunch of turnovers and none of those things actually happened. We just
Right.
like manifested them to drop the ball a lot somehow. I don't even know. But every time we've done that, not every time, but a lot of the times we've done that, the other team has turned the ball over more. Is it some law of attraction secret thing? I don't know, because we sure don't go in there, but we become a ball magnet. So why are we doing team? Why aren't we lining up and running a base cover 3 and spending 10 minutes defending their stuff, aligning to form, just do alignment to formations or whatever, do your key read drills, spend 20 minutes and spend the other 40 minutes of your practice time. Let's say that you have an hour. That's a lot, but let's just say, or whatever percentage of time that you have. Let's spend a third doing team. Let's spend a third tackling, and let's spend a third doing takeaways. We're going to tackle better. We're going to get more takeaways, and then we're going to at least line up, because we know that the other thing that causes us to give up points is misalignments.
Yes.
Right? 70% of the scores that Coach Shackelford found were misalignments. And I can tell you right now that if we did that study on our football team right now, even though our tackling has not been good, there are a lot of things that need to be fixed. I bet you that misalignment, there's misalignment on 70% or more.
Game film analysis, I'm seeing the same thing. It's just numbers. It's just alignment.
When you do game film analysis, right, you're absolutely right. When you do game film analysis, the number of touchdowns that I have called where I'm like, before the snap,
is going to go bad.
Like,
either right now or
man,
the
that
very
strong
next
safety's
play.
too tight. He shouldn't be there. He needs to be out here. And it's like, there you go.
Told you.
Like, I can see him ahead of time on their team. Of course, I'm looking at my team and I can't see it for some reason, or I'm screaming it from the box because But so then the question is, why aren't we just doing that? I don't have an answer.
It is. I'll 100% tell you why I can't do it, and that's because I'm scared to be so vanilla in my defense that we're just going to go out and run an over front 4-2-5 cover 3.
Sure.
So we're doing the next thing, which means it takes us longer. And let's also not, even if you're going to be vanilla running cover 3, you still have to have the trips check.
Sure.
Which is hopefully your quads or empty check, because guys, you really don't need anything else. You got to get those. There's so much situational stuff involved in football. Like right now, I'm thinking, what? You're right. What if we just ended every tackle with a whistle that you stand him up and the next guy goes in and rips the ball out every single snap?
What if I invested the first 2 weeks in putting in everything I wanted to do? Or what if I invested that 2 weeks at the beginning of the year, my camp weeks or whatever, are all about alignment, adjustments. I'm putting in my blitz packages. I'm putting in all that stuff. I'm not just a vanilla cover 3. And then I invest every Monday in that. And then Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday included for a Friday game, are tackling. Kind of what we do with special teams. What I do with special teams. So what I do with special teams is Monday is special teams day. Tuesday, Wednesday, we might be in the middle of team offense and go punt and run punt out there and punt the ball one time. That's special teams on Tuesday. But we invested 60 minutes in special teams on Monday. We just kind of do enough to bring it up Tuesday, Wednesday, and then Thursday we go through special teams again.
Right.
So, all right. Monday we're going to put in our game plan stuff. Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday we're going to do tackling, takeaways, and we're going to do, team, and then on Thursday we'll just do formation alignment rather than live team. So then what is the factor of why we can't put this emphasis on it? Is it that they have more time? They have
a lot more time,
even so much that the NCAA has to regulate it. And it's probably, I'm sure that they're absolutely sticking to those regulations because everybody knows that the University of Alabama has never had a violation. Thank you. And the Tuscaloosa Police Department is clearly much better at they're much better at keeping it quiet than Clark County is, because Clark County is terrible about this.
Look, they probably hid the first 20 at this rate. You know what I mean? Like, how long do you hide it?
Well, whatever. It doesn't matter. They're not there to learn to drive. Or learn anything else.
So is it the skill gap? Is we have to spend so much time
there's a big
fundamental football that we can't get into the extracurricular.
If you've ever coached, I used to. It's just so daggone cold. Every week it's the coldest week of the year. But I used to do the All-Star game here, the what we call a River City rivalry, which is the North versus South Richmond All-Star game, and I used to help coach that for a number of years. And when you go out and you coach an all-star team of seniors, and by the way, kids that come from schools that aren't running complex programs, but they're just good athletes, your D1 guys don't play in these things. It's your D2s and your D3 guys, but they've played 4 years of football. They've played lots of meaningful snaps. They've played at least 2 or 3 years of varsity football. And even if they played for a team that wasn't like, I wouldn't consider like a well-coached team, these guys understand ball. They understand football. They understand leverage and alignment and adjustments and all of these sorts of things. They've made the mistakes. They've figured it out, a lot of it. And when you coach them, again, it's probably 80, 90% of them, it's not all, really get football. And so I remember one day we installed, freezing cold, absolutely miserable. And one of the coaches there ran a wall return on punt. Now you have 4 practices, and usually one of them gets canceled because of something, rain or something. So you've got very limited time, and it is cold, and everybody's miserable, and you're always missing kids because they've got other things. Some of them have started other sports. They're already playing basketball, they're already wrestling or something like that. Things come up, so you don't have everybody there every day. So he goes to put in a wall return for punt return, and I'm like, we're gonna put this in like 10 minutes, and these kids are going to execute this thing in 3 days. And like, it's a wall return. It's not just like, go get it. Right. I'm thinking like, just line up and go get it and put the fastest kid we have back there. Right. And we'll just sort it out. He installs this wall return. He says, you're going to go here. 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 He says, all right, line it up. And we've got a kid that's there just to long snap. We got a kid that's just there to punt. We got some scout guys lined up. Long snapper snaps. It's a beautiful snap because he's an all-star. Bam, hits the punter. Punter puts it up in the air 40 yards because he's an all-star. These are things that I don't have. These kids, which I'm proud to say at least one of them was a kid that I coached. These seniors in an all-star game take off, flat down the line, turn up, pop it, one on this 5, one on that 5, one on the next 5, 5 yards, spaced 5 yards apart, bam, turn inside, block the wall, right down the side. One time, went over it one time, ran it, looked beautiful, might have run it one more time. We're like, all right, that's it.
That's our punt return.
That would take us a month. I'd have that one kid who's going to play in an all-star game, and he would get it, and he'd be standing there looking at, like when I was a senior in college, I had to take a math class because to get an education minor, you had to have 2 C minuses in math, and I had 2 D pluses in some calculus class that they placed me into as a freshman, and I was not having it as a freshman. I was not ready for that. So
Beer
as a
was
senior,
way
I'm
too
taking these freshman math classes. And I ended up being a math teacher. I'm good at math. But as a senior, I'm taking these freshman math classes, and the freshmen don't know how to do this stuff, right? And I'm just looking at them. He'd go over something, and I'd, okay, got it. And these kids are just dying at this thing. And I'm looking at them like, what do you not get? Half of you are math majors. Pull your lives together. That's what your all-star on your team is thinking when he's looking at the other 10 and you're trying to install this wall return. He got it already. So Saban's got 85 of those.
Yes.
They might not all be thinkers in the classical sense, but at football, they get it. They may not learn the playbook, but they understand space. They understand leverage just because they're athletes, right? They get this stuff. And then he's got more time. So you have all of those advantages that we probably have. Do we have a few kids that we could do that with? 100%. Do we have not just 11, but 15, 18, 20, whatever we're going to need in a game, personnel packages and stuff? Probably not.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I mean, it's time, it's experience. We're teaching the fundamentals of the game. We've had two kids run over and pick up punts that were.
My God, we had one this week that tried to snag one, and he's a good athlete. He waited.
The fact that
you
we
remember
had
that video that came out 3
weekend,
weeks ago where the punting team grabbed the punt returner and tried to make him touch the ball? Do you remember when that came out? Okay, well, it wasn't that insane, but like there's 3 of them standing around it, and he's like, I'm just gonna go get it. They're just waiting on it to die, and then he
he just runs up,
and then he whiffs it. Like he touches it and runs by, and they're like, "Oh, well, okay, appreciate that." Just dumb shit happens. But like kids are kids.
Yeah.
Even when they're really good athletes and
yeah,
a huge part of
we've had kids that were really good athletes and experienced athletes do things that you just. And it happens at the college level too. It happens in the NFL. What we've had the Leon Letts and stuff, and that are just they're more rare, but there's the wrong way returns and that kind of stuff. That all happens.
Oh yeah, we watched the Baltimore Ravens. They ran power both ways, right? So both guards pulled into each other.
Yeah,
right. So that's a video that goes pretty viral.
I was so depressed about that one year, and then I watched Penn State do it, and I was like, all right.
It's just normal, guys. It's football. People mishear things. Like we ran outside zone this last week, and the leading tackle, so going to his side, ran it the wrong way. So it's like 4 linemen and a tight end all reach to the left, and then that tackle who's supposed to get the one guy that can really probably make the tackles, like, I'm gonna go the other way, right? Like shit happens, man. Yeah. No big deal. But it goes back to the point of if you're trying to enforce or emphasize something like this, you've got a lot of stuff on your plate. It makes it very difficult.
I think we also. Well, I think we also tend to look at this thing and go like, "How we got this." We do it like a whack-a-mole type of thing. When there's certain things that shouldn't be whack-a-mole, right? Like we shouldn't just be like, "All right, cool, we installed tackling," and then not tackle in practice anymore. We shouldn't be like, all right, we installed cover 3. It's good to go if we ever need it.
Right.
Like, no, you need to keep working those things. And something that's as valuable as takeaways, we should be working.
Even if you do a circuit once or twice a week, I don't know that that's enough. You know what I mean? You said something a year or so ago.
I bet you get into you probably get into a coast with it, right? If you do the same circuit.
Right. Yeah. You said something, I think it was about a year ago on an episode, and you talked about, I think we were talking about building drills or something, right? And it's like, whatever you're bad at, whatever it needs to look like the game, there should be a picture of the game, a piece of the game minus maybe
one-on-one
9 other guys, right? And then maybe it's reading, pulling guards. Well, eventually, even if my backer's just reading 1 pulling guard, and now I have 2 backers reading 2 pulling guards, and there's a running back, because we need to really have a target, because that should be the second read. Why can't you just end that with a strip, right? Or stand him up in the next guy's strip. There's so many places to add this to drills where we could do it all the time. And so I guess that hopefully.
And that's a hard thing too, though, because it's going to slow the drill down.
For
Right
sure.
now, the ball's bouncing off over there, and I
What's
got
the
to go.
value of it, though? I guess
Gotta
is
get
like that.
I mean, but you're right. If you do the same, I saw some really good. This week stood out to me. Two things stood out to me this week in college football, and of course, we're in a different week now. But if you want to circle back to the week of the Alabama South Carolina game, Georgia and whoever the frick we played, Mississippi State. God,
Right.
The Oregon, the Oregon Ohio State game was the big one. I saw that we had some onside kicks, some really good onside kicks and stuff, but I saw some really good strips and these were more in the NFL too. I think I saw some balls getting punched out, beautiful, just punching the ball out, causing turnovers,
Peanut punches, man. I saw it.
and I think if you do that in a controlled, because that's a hard thing to drill, right? Because when I've got here's another thing. I'm trying to teach my relatively uncoordinated 15-year-old backup outside linebacker how to punch the ball out. Am I going to have him learn that on my starting wide receiver / DB who's holding the ball and teaching him to punch the ball out, and he's like missing and punching him in the ribs and punches him in the do I want to drill that like that? To get and then like to get the force that actually knocks the ball out and all that sort of stuff. We used to do the sack fumble drill, and that will kill your shoulder if you just rake the arm down. So we had to figure out how to rake the arm down, but not with the arm up type of thing.
Right.
We would have him just rake where the arm's supposed to be. So we would have the guy stand there, and he would rake where the arm's supposed to be, and then he would just kind of chuck the ball out. Right, so tuck his shoulder, come down across his arm, and then flip it out. So we got to get creative with it. We can't really do those violent takeaways. We can do things like interception drill where we just work on, we all drop to our spots, we throw the ball up, he picks it off, and then we work on, following and blocking for it. But again, that's ultimately you have to build the game. And if we do that one week, that's cool. I know for sure if we do it one time, it's not going to have an impact.
Right.
We can talk about we're going to do it really hard for 1 week and it's going to have this you get what you ask for, law of attraction type of result, but it's not going to be long term unless we do it every week. But then, like you said, if we just do a circuit, it just becomes a drill.
Yeah.
We got to transfer it to the game.
I think the other benefit, if you could just add it to every drill, and I understand that, like you just talked about the injury aspect of this, and I guess it could cause me not to do it all the time, but if you think about the kid on the other end too, yes, you're getting a kid who's practicing raking a ball or punching a ball, but the other kid is
practicing
getting more aware that at the end of every single rep, someone's attacking the ball.
Right.
You said that about onside kicks, right? Like your teams, because you kicked onside kicks every time, you practiced it a ton, and so you were more aware of, hey, coach, this might be an onside kick situation, and identifying the dumb things. The kickers lined up.
They know all the rules, so they know it's got to go 10 yards. And so they would sit and look at a ball that died at 9 yards. We would kick an onside kick and it would die at 9 yards, and those kids would jump on it. It's like, thank you. We'll go now. Now it's live. But we would sit there and watch it die at 9 yards and just go, yeah, it's not legal.
So you kind of do get to develop both sides of that, I suppose. I think
that's a good way to look at it. Now,
maybe
you could use that with if you have, maybe if you're two platoon, you could come together and do a live drill that way. Obviously you have the shortcoming of the fact that in my, take my safeties group as an example. I work with safeties and outside linebacker. I work with the force defenders. And then one of the outside linebackers goes down with the defensive line linebackers, and we kind of just move them around like that. Some of them are, a couple of them are first string running back, second string running back. They work on holding a football. So when I have them in the drill, that could be good for them. Some of them will never touch a football unless it trickles into their arms somehow. And are we getting the same value when we're stripping the ball out of that guy's arms who doesn't even know how to hold a football?
Right.
And I'm not going to sit there and teach him. That's his receiver coach's job, or whatever. Or like he's an HY, like I've got one that's a H or a Y on offense, but he's a blocking H or a Y, and then he's an outside linebacker. Like he's just a blocking kid. He's a guard. Some of my guards know how to carry a ball though. But yeah, I mean, it is harder for us. We don't have red shirts.
Right.
Red shirts, I mean, that's one thing to think about is red shirts are an amazing thing to have. When I was at Ellsworth, at JUCO, we did have red shirts. And we had a red shirt offense, essentially a red shirt offense and a red shirt defense. And it was a mixture. We would take an entire team of kids who didn't play mixed with red shirts, and we would go play JV games, which were scrimmages against D3s. And that's how many we had. So we didn't have to go with that was not a major college environment. We didn't have to go service. We didn't have to take our defense against our offense. We were running, so we could just abuse those kids. I mean, essentially, we're not worried about them getting hurt. I mean, you don't want them to get hurt, but it's not going to hurt your season.
Right.
So you have a lot more, hey,
And
send your
honestly,
send your redshirt running backs down here and let us strip the ball from them. Like, yeah, you do that. We don't have that luxury.
And realistically, even if you hurt a kid that's going to get playing time, he can get an injury red shirt, so he can get that year back.
Yeah, you
right?
get that
Like,
year back. Yeah. Yeah. Ours are
you,
graduating in 4 years, one way or the other.
yeah.
So,
I kind of want. I know we're pushing that hour mark. I want to
yeah.
talk about the other question, which was in today's society with social media the way it is, can one of these savants really operate at the high school level, whether it be coordinator, head coach, a guy who does not give a shit about relationships over everything? He does not care about your parents screaming and yelling on the sideline. Like, those things don't matter. I am the next Nick Saban defensive coordinator guru, and I'm here to coach this team to state championships. Is that a thing we could even see, or do those guys have to go to the next level due to the requirements to be a high school coach?
I've got them on our schedule. I mean, honestly. My guess is, I'd be surprised if you don't. My guess is that everybody has. I have coached 2 immediately pop into my head that I have coached with or against. Immediately pop into my head. Both of them successful high school coaches. Both of them state champions. Different states, different places, different. Both of them very successful high school football coaches. Completely different people. One of them not a good person, and the other one just obsessed with football. Not a bad person,
Yeah.
but just obsessed with football, right? They, and maybe the other one's not even a bad person, just his obsession with football is, I didn't like it.
Yeah. Those people rub you wrong, right?
Some of them do, yeah. Some of them do.
Because they don't care about they don't like, and you
I think
talked
that's
about the
I think
the
the
guy that
biggest
runs it up
issue
the
that I
middle
had
for
was
you.
I wasn't sure that this person cared about the players. Which that to me, and I do believe that can still happen too, and does happen. That you have guys who don't really truly care about the players. We have, because look, at the end of the day, I mean, I'll say 100% yes, that can happen, because all you have to do is be a used car salesman. One of my best friends is a used car salesman. Okay, I don't have anything against used car salesmen. It's a whatever, just a metaphor or something, euphemism. I don't know, whatever it is.
Metaphor is good.
We'll go with metaphor. The thing the idea that you can trick people into believing that you really care about them. The slick talker. that can convince the parents, especially with the recruiting environment that's come into high school, is now that's even bigger, that you can convince these parents that you have their best interests at heart when you really don't. And ultimately, all that you have at heart is winning football games. There's a lot of college football coaches, I believe, who do not have the best interests of the players at heart. I mean, I just don't. We hear the stories about, the kid who he had a full ride to XYZ and he broke his leg in 9 places and they told him he could never play again, but that coach honored his full ride. Why is that a story? It's because most of them won't do that. Right? It's because most of them don't do that. It's because most of them will pull a scholarship in a heartbeat and you won't know why. And it might just be because a better kid showed up. Now, some of them are not like that. Some of them do have the best interest at heart. I have no reason to believe that Nick Saban or Kirby Smart doesn't care about those kids. Like, I have no reason to believe that. They've given me, maybe you have, maybe somebody else has that indication. But I've never had that indication that was the case for either one of them. Steve Spurrier, I've never had that feeling from somebody like that. There's other guys that I had that feeling for, and you know what? They're not as successful.
Yeah.
I've never liked Bobby Petrino. I don't like to name names, but I don't think that's a good person. I think he's a brilliant football coach, but you know what? He's never reached that level, and I honestly think that
is he back at Arkansas this year?
I don't know. Screw him.
I think he's at the OC at Arkansas again.
Good for him. He's not going to be on the podcast anytime soon.
Okay,
he's the only one I have anything bad to say about.
Bobby. Yeah, I think he's back at Arkansas.
Only one I have anything bad to say about it. It has nothing to do with his coaching. And maybe he's better. People change. I don't know. There's a few others I could say bad things about, but it's not really my place. I don't know him personally. I don't know him personally, but it just rubs me the wrong way, 100%. And that goes back to the Falcons too. But like, I do think that the guys that are at the very, very top that are obsessed with football and are brilliant at it have the added, you talked about Saban coaching at the end of his career, game in hand, and still coaching to the last whistle. It was 10 years ago in a national championship game. And that's because that's who he is, the detail and all of those things. But I think that those guys who ultimately reach that level also have the other element of caring. But I think you can have guys winning high school championships and stuff who are the used car salesmen who can trick people in. Now, they might not do it for 40 years.
Right.
But they can probably do it for a little while. I've seen a lot of guys. Here's another one I can say something bad about. Rush Probst, the Hoover guy. The guy was on the two-a-days on ESPN at Hoover in Alabama. And then he got run out of there for changing grades or whatever. I just remember one of the things on that thing, he was screaming at a woman who said that her son was sick, and he was just like, basically like, it's too bad. He should be sick or something like that. I mean, like yelling at this mom. And it's like, come on, buddy. But anyway, then he went to another school and he got into all sorts of stuff, right? But he keeps getting jobs. Why does he keep getting jobs when everybody knows that, he has all of these things in his past? Petrino's another one. He has all of these things in his past. So what happens with those jobs? He gets them. He's successful. I haven't followed Probst in a while, but I know for a while he would get another job, be successful, and then get run out again. And it's like you're just buying your 3 years of success until you can't deal with him anymore, and then move on.
Yeah.
So there's a certain level of being an a-hole that you have to maintain for a while, or you have to leave.
What about like the Belichick way? Just cold-hearted, not a lot of. Hey, you just do what you're supposed to do. You know what I mean?
I'd be interested to know more about like.
I call him cold-hearted, guys. I don't know him, and all I can see is all I know this, that it is. I cannot sit and watch him break down football on TV. And I don't know if it's because the producer is making him sound stupid because he's just trying to talk ball. And like, nope, now dumb it down for the
They do a lot
armchair
of that.
quarterback who's never played a down of football, or if that's just him. Is he just ice cold? And
I think there's parts of both that are true.
like he doesn't have the personality. You talked about Saban sitting next to Pat McAfee. Like those are obviously different ends of the spectrum.
Yeah, but it's fun. It's like
Belichick just seems
Saban
even
knows what he's
further
into, and he's
below.
like he's trying
Right.
to deal with trying to be cool.
I think here's funny. This weekend, I'm pretty sure Pat McAfee said the girl flashed the camera right on top of Saban's head, and it's like, what? What have you gotten yourself into, Nick Saban? You're
Yeah,
going back to the party scenes, man.
yeah.
But I think I wonder about Belichick sometimes because I'd love to sit in a room with that guy and just talk ball. And if any of y'all listening know him, by all means, hook us up.
He
But
can go to the podcast. Yeah. Well, I
yeah,
just
for sure.
remember. I mean, I remember. Obviously, I think he had a much better personality as far as getting out with people. Being in front of people. But when Shula, I've talked about this before. Shula did they brought him on for the second quarter of a Dolphins game back in
Right.
I don't know, 2006 or something like that. And it was the greatest announcing I've ever heard in my life. But they could not wait to get him off of there because nobody but me and a few thousand other football coaches understood a freaking word that he was saying. And so you get guys like Romo. They're doing it with Brady now too, but Romo's been great about it. I think Romo's one of the ones who's figured out how to dumb it down without sounding dumb to a
Yeah.
coach. He does it in a way where he'll tell you what's about to happen and it happens. Collinsworth has never figured that out. Collinsworth has been very successful, but those of us who know the game listen to Collinsworth and are just I guarantee you Chris Collinsworth knows football. Okay, he's been doing this his entire life. But he's dumbed it down in a way that people who know the game listen to Chris Collinsworth and are like, come on, dude.
You know
Honestly,
better.
come on. Aikman's done a good job. Romo's done a good job. Maybe you just have to play quarterback for Dallas. Of dumbing down the things that they say. Gruden was able to do it in a way that was entertaining. He would let that genius come out and do it in a way that was it was that Spider 2 Y banana thing, and he would say it. It sounded so ridiculous, and he knew it sounded ridiculous to everybody else. And so he
That's
could
part
do
of
it. That was a way to do it. I think Saban's going to work because he is willing to play into the perception of who he is, even if it's not true. I don't know if Belichick's willing to play into the perception of who he is, and I think the perception of who he is may be more true than
I've loved seeing him do the Manning show, right? The Manning telecast, whatever, Monday nights. There needs to legitimately be two different sets of broadcasters. It needs to be you don't know what the hell you're talking about. You don't know football. Go listen to this, be entertained. And there needs to be there is right now, the Manning cast, right? Where it's two dude and look, they
do a bunch of other stuff. I don't usually watch it because it becomes a
it's
variety show
still
sometimes.
good, but yeah, they bring on guests and try to have conversation. And I just want to see Peyton Manning for whatever 60 minutes.
Yes,
Breaking down a football game with his little brother who also played at that. That's what I want.
right. And that's
I
what
just want to go
Romo
sit
does
in there
such a
while they're
good
doing
job
it.
of making it enjoyable.
Yeah,
For
because they
where
still want
everybody can
them to
understand,
fan.
but yeah, he slips it
Oh.
in, and you're like, okay, this guy.
I love watching Peyton get pissed when they mismanage time or throw a bad ball. Receiver drops the ball and he is turns red, ready to go to war because that receiver dropped the ball, or it just makes me laugh.
What's funny is I watched like I said, my father-in-law was here, and we watched a couple games. They were just on in between doing stuff, and we turned the game on, and my wife and her mom would go drink wine or something, and I'm just sitting there with her dad and watching football. And he's a good dude, but not a football guy. He's a basketball guy, right? And so coach youth basketball, coaches girls in basketball, and so played basketball and still play basketball for a long time. And but football wasn't his sport. But he likes it. But things would happen, and he's like, oh, it looks like this or that, and I would be like, oh, there was one that he was like, it was a play, and I forget the play. It might have been the Redskins or some Commanders, and it was something where it looked like it was a really good fake, and it looked like the quarterback just like panicked and shoved it off to the running back. And he was like,
Right.
"Oh, he made a great play." And I'm like, "No, that was just called screen because if you look, you can see the tackle pulling out there and leading up on the." I was like, "It's a called screen." And he's like, and then there was another something like that. It might have been the onside kick that bounced off of the guy. And he's like, "I wonder if he did that on purpose." And I was like, we work on kicking it at the guy who's probably going to drop it, and just beaming it at him."
Yeah.
And he's like, "I should watch games with you more often." He's like, "You actually like know what's happening." And I'm like, "My job." But that's what I wanted in an announcer. And instead I get these guys who are like, "I wonder if that was an RPO." It's like, no, it wasn't an RPO. It's absolutely not an RPO.
Well, it's never an RPO unless they throw it, right? If they made the
There's
read
no,
and
yeah,
it ran,
RPOs always end with a throw.
right.
It's a called
It's a
pass.
it's a
Yeah.
pass option. I've noticed that sitting at the OU game. We're gonna get to our level ups next, but
Yep.
now that we've been season ticket holders for 2 or 3 years now. We were trying to add up to it. We have no idea. Anyway, but we sat in the stands and I'm like breaking down and just telling Sam about football or the neighbor guy. We've got a pretty cool set of season ticket neighbors that are at every game, but we're just talking about like formations and how we call them and what the advantages are. And then sure enough, here's, you know, last year Dylan Gabriel is throwing this route that I'm like, we really like to put this guy on the line because it opens up smash. We can get this corner route and bam, there's corner route. And then everyone's like, hey, that
Yeah.
guy knows football.
Yeah. You
Well,
get to
what's
do things
funny is
like, yeah, especially with the
they
route adjustments that they do, you get to do things like, oh, outside leverage is about to be a slant. Bam.
yeah,
Yeah. And it's like, how do you know that? It's like, well, that's what was open.
that's pretty common sense,
Yeah.
right? But it it does draw people want that. So it kind of makes me a little surprised that there hasn't been that adjustment at the professional level or for TV now. Like someone is just in there going X's and O's. Like
But you know what? If
I
you
don't-
go and do that at a random bar, you're gonna have people who just are so certain. This is why I don't watch. Like, I will never watch a Georgia game. I don't watch Georgia out amongst people, really,
right,
because that's the only one that I'm an irrational fan for. I don't even care that much about the Falcons. Right? It's Falcons are Falcons. It's just the Falcons are what people in Atlanta do on after a Georgia game. Like that just gives us. That's what we do during the hangover.
right,
Is watch the Falcons. And but I will sit there and be like, somebody will, oh, what's he doing? I trained my wife on this a long time ago because she got really mad at it. Might have been RG3. It was either RG3 or Kirk Cousins, one of the Washington quarterbacks back when we first started dating or whatever. And she would talk about, oh, that was such a bad pass, and I'm like, his offensive line is horrible right now. And then I would hear her like on the phone with her mom and they'd be talking about the game. And her mom would be like, I'm sure her mom's like, oh, the quarterback was so bad today. And she's like, no, mom, this is the offensive line. But if I go into an establishment and we're sitting there watching the game and this guy is like, oh, he should have done this or he should have done that. I'm like, no, can't do that because they're in cover 2. That person who knows absolutely nothing will sit there and argue with me.
yeah,
And I don't know if there's enough people that just want to hear that they're wrong, right? I think what a lot of people want to hear is what they're thinking. So I think that's the limitation is we want to yell at that guy for dropping the ball. We don't want to hear that the ball is supposed to be put out in front of him and not behind him. Right. We want to go, well, if he can touch his hands, he should catch it. It's like, no.
right.
No. I mean, sure, but no. We want to
That's what
yell
we
at the
say in
quarterback.
practice when we yell at our kid. Hey,
Yeah.
touch your hands.
Yeah. Well,
But
we want to yell at the quarterback for the ball sailing to nobody and it being caught and returned. We don't want to understand that. We don't want to be told that the receiver ran the wrong route and it's a timing based route and he has to trust that guy's there and that guy broke the trust. Like, and they certainly don't want to hear about run fits and they don't want to. I can tell you that my wife does not want to hear me yelling about Georgia's force anymore. She's had it. Lack of a force defender.
oh, I love it.
Anyway,
Let's do our level up and get out of here, man. What's your level up for this week?
man. One of the crazy things is I've been so into this unique ability idea, um, and focusing in on it. I had a week last week where I was literally, I went to my team, Shem, and said, I don't want to be in my email inbox anymore. I go in there and I end up wasting so much time clicking around, and it's so many. There's so many elements to it that like I end up wasting time looking at things that I shouldn't be looking at because somebody else is going to handle it, and I'm just like, I'll just go in and do this. It's like, no, that's not my job. Like my job is not customer service. My job is not any of that. Or I'll jump in and read things or whatever. Or somebody will send in an email that's upset, and again, I'm not customer service, and I'll get like super, defensive about it. So I had a week last week where I now get a report that is sent outside of my email inbox on anything that I need to look at, anything that I need to see, and I just don't go to my inbox anymore. I get it. If you send it and it's important, it will get to me. But it's not something I'm going to take when it came. Now today I did. So that's been really cool. But the funny thing is I noticed that I'm going more and more towards this unique ability, and I had this realization today. I've talked about the book, The Gap and the Gain, and I think it's a really great book that everybody should read, even though it's geared towards entrepreneurs. It is a fantastic book by Dan Sullivan and Ben Hardy. And I had this notice today. I'm always on myself about being too lazy. I always think I'm too lazy. I've always thought I'm too lazy. I've just always thought I'm lazy. And it doesn't matter what I've done. It doesn't matter anything that I've ever done, anything I've ever accomplished. I always just think I'm too lazy. And I started getting that feeling today because I'm not dicking around with emails. I'm not waiting. And I'm like, but I feel like I'm moving more towards that unique ability because I start to get in my head like I'm being lazy again. And then I do this thing called positive focus. And every week I write down the things that I've accomplished. And the last few weeks, I have zero problem putting down 10 or more things. And I do it every day, by the way. Every day at the end of the day, I put down 3 things or more that I accomplished today. And sometimes you got to stretch a little bit, but I can find 2 or 3 things at least. And the last few weeks, I've been able to look back and put down 10 things, and I'm accomplishing everything that I wanted to do, everything I needed to do. I don't feel, because I'm doing things for the most part that I like doing, and that I'm good at. So it doesn't feel like miserable. And I had that realization today that like I am, the last week, especially in the last 2 weeks, I've spent so much more time in my unique ability, which essentially unique ability is the things that you are good at and really like to do. It's the things that you are one of the best at, and or the one that should be doing it because you're good at it, and you also should be doing it because you like doing it. There's always things you have to do because they have to be done, but you shouldn't be doing them if you suck at them, unless you just want to learn them. And that's a whole separate deal. So I mean, that's for me. That's it. It's like I had the realization today that I'm not being lazy. Just because I don't, I don't feel like I've been grinding
Right.
for the last couple of weeks, but I can look back and I can sit here, I can pull this thing out, and every single thing that I wanted to get done, other than one thing that had technical issues that were beyond me, and I was able to, instead of sitting there and killing myself working on that, I was able to hand that off to somebody else and say, this is
Good
what
thing about having a team, right?
this is what you should be doing and not me. I feel good about that. I feel good about that starting to move towards just not working for the sake of work. Which, by the way, every head coach in the world does. Just works for the sake of working and doing everything. Head coaches are horrible at delegating. Horrible. And so, like, I feel good about it.
I love it. I'm sitting here racking my brain while you're talking about my level up, and this week's been a little weird for me. Just trying to, I don't know. We just get caught up in trying to progress so much sometimes. Like there's a lot of things. I still study ball. I honestly was gonna talk about reading the rule book, because since we've had Mike D, the referee, on, actually, I think you went on his show first, and then he came and joined us, and like now I have his number, and we text quite a bit about football rules, and he just it's just how the networking thing happens, right? You find that person, you can connect. And so I'm doing all this crazy rule research on field goals and punts and scrimmage kicks, and like I'm feeding this stuff to my team. So we're gonna, try to play around with those situational things in the future. But that's what I wanted to talk about at first. But I had a pretty cool occurrence this week. Kind of long story. I'll shorten it as much as I can. Back in 2020, I'm sitting on a cruise ship. We're Carnival Cruise Lines. We're in the middle of the Caribbean area. I think we're on our way from Cancun to Jamaica. And I was martini drunk. And I don't know if you've ever been on a cruise ship. I didn't even have the alcohol package, but the gin martinis are banging. They're really good. They make them perfect. You think I know, but man, they're good. And I got drunk, and obviously it's March of 2020. COVID is the thing. My best friend in the world, who I've deployed with multiple times overseas. We've been really great friends for over 10 years, something like 13 years. Him and his wife were nurses. And basically, I got into a Facebook argument with my best friend about how real is COVID. Not that it was fake.
Right.
But I was already forecasting this is a ploy, this is a gimmick, this is something, because I'm conservative and a little bit of a conspiracy theorist. And he's like, I'm literally living with this stuff every single day. We're pulling the plug on people's lives every single day. You're a joke. And I didn't hear from my best friend in the entire world from March of 2020. And I reached out many, many times until about a month ago. And I always talk about communication being like one of the most important things, right? You have to communicate with everyone around you. And this is strictly a case of communication gone wrong. I assumed he was extremely mad at me and was like, F that dude. He was going through some other things in life and essentially just didn't get any of my messages, doesn't remember any of that stuff. Told me to my face, like, I don't remember us talking about that. So it's just one of those deals where it was like, if we just communicated better,
Right.
I got 4 years of my best friend back. But I did get to, we got to meet up with my wife and I. Sam went and met up with him and his wife. We coming back from the Cotton Bowl. Jesus Christ, what a game. And so at least it was a good closure to our Saturday, because that was not it. And so it was really good to reconnect. And so if there's someone out there in your life that you are a really good friend of and you haven't heard from them, or maybe you think you're in an argument, maybe you're in an argument, like, mend those relationships, because I'm excited. Like, I can finally text my best friend again. And even though I've moved on and made other friends and like our lives went on, and it was still there. I mean, it was the second we saw each other, like, you know what I mean? Just, yeah, there's a reason why he's my best friend. And so,
Right.
So yeah,
Nice.
That's my level up, is that I just rekindled a relationship that was one of the best of all time, and it fell apart for stupid ass reasons. And then maybe it actually didn't even fall apart. We just both stopped texting each other at the same time. So very strange. But anyway, that's my level up. So
nice. That's awesome.
Let's pay the bills one more time and get out of here, Joe.
Yeah, go check out joedanielfootball.com. We've got a new guide out on how to build your ultimate defensive system. Just go to joedanielfootball.com. It is not based on any, front specifically. Anybody can use it. Youth, high school, doesn't matter what level. It's just a brand new guide on building your ultimate defensive system. You can get it at joedanielfootball.com.
My pay the bills is go to joedanielfootball.com and learn how to count. I did all that game film analysis and all of my consulting on the side. And the big question is always, how can I get my force player to pick which gap to hit, because he's got 3 lead blockers? And the answer is always like, how did they get so many people to that side of the ball?
You don't have any,
having people to that side of the ball. 2x2 is not a balanced formation. Okay, 2x2 spread. The running backs on one side or the other. You got to have numbers. And then go to patreon.com/Chamberlain Football Consulting, and I will tell you that again in your own personal meeting when we look at your film and you say, why can't my force guy pick a hole? That's it.
Cool.
Social media, I am at Coach Chambo OK on X and Twitter. Same thing. You can find me on other platforms. My Facebook is now turned into football, so if you're a football coach, you can look up Daniel Chamberlain on Facebook. It's got me and my beautiful wife. There's the profile photo. Chamberlain Football Consulting at gmail.com. If you think you're ready to come on and be a guest on the podcast, we always like to have good guests. Look, especially if you're a JDFB insider and you're already paying to learn from us, come talk with us. Let's communicate about those things. I would love to talk ball with with guys who are they're already on brand for what we do, right? Terminology taken care of. And then you can find me at YouTube if you want to. Joe, where can we find you? Actually, if you just listen to the podcast, Joe's here every week.
I'm on Twitter at Football Info, and I have an Instagram at Joe Daniel Football, and we have a TikTok at Joe Daniel Football, and all of those things are not ways to contact me, but they are ways to follow what is happening. And we have some cool stuff. We do some. I will say we do some cool stuff on Instagram. I don't do it. I'll just tell you. We do put some cool stuff out on like Instagram, and clips of the podcast go on TikTok and Instagram. And I know people have told me like they like those because it just reminds them that the new podcast is out, or that like there's something on the podcast that they're interested in. So those are good follows for you. We do some like little infographics and stuff on Instagram that I think are cool. I just approve them. I don't ever see them, but like I am totally out of social media, and I'm out of email inbox now too. So that is
I look forward to the day.
But we are all on. But we do, keep you updated on those platforms, and Facebook.com/ Joe Daniel Football. And also you can find Joe Daniel Football on the YouTubes, so you can watch the podcast and you can see Daniel pour his
bourbon
juice
bourbon.
down.
I won't lie to you. Went right down the old beard.
If you want to see it live, you can see my Rob in the background. Love my Rob. Cleaned him up today.
Like I still don't have something as cool as your Darth Vader. My son, by the way, I put on the podcast. I'll tell you this, then we'll get out of here. I put on the podcast at my dad's house because how cool is it that you can get on YouTube and find yourself on a very successful football show?
It sucks when you're trying to find something though, and you're like Google like, how do I defend this and this, and trying to get ideas, and like your one comes up, and it's like,
I get that,
yeah.
But my son, the first thing he saw was your Darth Vader guy back there, and he was like, Dad, he's got Star Wars. I'm like, yeah. So I don't have anything that cool.
There's that's actually, this is Yoda too. But you can't
well, he's never been seen. Yes, Yoda. Little bobblehead.
And my high school, like the Coke bottle made for my high school.
That's pretty awesome.
That's what you get for going to high school in Atlanta.
You have to be a Georgia fan the rest of your life, and you get a Coke bottle.
Yep.
If this is your first time listening to the Football Coaching Podcast, congratulations. You got one of the coolest I could drink beer with these guys episodes. It was unformatted.
Yeah.
We kind of went in with an idea, and then you listened to what it turned into. If you
we
made
circled around turnover sometimes.
There you go. It's good to have some sometimes. Make sure that you subscribe so you don't miss any future episodes. You can find us on your favorite podcatcher, especially Apple Podcasts, Spotify. If you're on one of those, you like what you hear, leave us a review. We prefer that 4 and 5-star range. If it's worse than that, email us, let us know what we're doing. Or just don't come back. I don't know. Like, you don't have to leave a bad review if you don't like something. Thank you for listening to this episode of the Football Coaching Podcast. Remember, coach simple, play fast, win.